In 1948, when the Malayan emergency began at Ayer Itam in Johor, the communist terrorists struck simultaneously in the Sungi Siput area. The government of the United Kingdom stepped in with troops to suppress the communists.
Whenever you're ready.
So you want to start?
The first one, yeah.
Okay. Our family moved out to what was then Malaya in the 1950 because of the communist emergency that was happening in Malaya at the time, and then we were out there as a family because my father was part of the security forces. He was in the special branch of the police, and he specialised in anti-communist, anti-terrorist activities. And so we moved out there as a family with him. We were always very strongly advised by the army that you should travel in army convoys. So you'd have tanks and other armour-plated, highly armed vehicles with cars in between with ordinary civilians. So on this weekend we went down to the coast. We had a good day on the seaside, and then we were driving on our way back. We suddenly hit the bridge, which lifted us up a bit off the ground. We were going fast, and we met this solid wall of rain, and suddenly the road went from dry to absolutely pouring wet. And the car went into a spin, spun round 3 or 4 times, hit the edge of the road, turned over and rolled down the bank into this rice field and landed on its side with all the water rushing in. I realised we'd ended up in the water. So I was trying to find my way out because I was actually underwater, and my brother was on the right-hand side of me and the car was on its side. He was actually sort of out in the air inside the car. But what he was doing, I didn't at the time understand, he was trying to push the door open like a trap door above his head to get out of it. And in doing that, he was having to push his feet around to try and get a grip, and he had his foot, while I was underwater, on the side of my head and my neck, and so it was forcing me even further down under the water, and I was trying to get out and I couldn't.
It's nearly noon, and the temperature's about 90 degrees. Private Keith Shrigley, a national serviceman, is from Macclesfield. Checking up their position is Second Lieutenant James Marshall. He's from Pershore in Worcestershire. Their target is still further ahead. The patrol moves cautiously, for somewhere in the bush, the bandits may be waiting.
Finally, he managed to push the door open and pull himself out, and that took the weight off my neck and head, and I was able to carried on walking the direction we were going, and we came to a small village where the rice farmers were living, and we went in there to see if we could find a phone. Obviously in those days there was no mobile, and it was just whether they had a landline. They had just one for the whole village, and we managed to sort of get them to allow us to use the phone to phone back to the town where we lived. I mean, my feeling at the time was that villagers were not unfriendly, but they were absolutely uncooperative. You know, they didn't want to go out of their way to help us in any way whatsoever. Now you could say it was the reason because they didn't like us, and they thought, well, these are, you know, colonial whatever. These guys are out in the jungle around them, waiting for nightfall to come in and, you know, get the support and the food and all the things that they needed from the villagers. Terrorism was what they were about. Their whole job was to terrorise the civilian population. And we talk about now, got more loosely in the modern day, terrorist activity or terrorists here. Then the word terrorism really meant terror. Absolute real, that was their weapon, was terror. They had to totally and utterly scare the locals to death. In fact, yeah, to death. They used to kill lots and lots of them in really horrible ways, very public ways. You know, I mean, I won't tell you some of the dreadful things that they used to do, but it was, because terror was the key word. The terrorists, by using terror as the absolute ultimate weapon, to stop anybody who had showed any signs that they might actually be in support of the current situation. People in that village were probably aware that if anybody who was out in the jungle and was aware that, you know, we were where we were at the hands of these people, ready to be handed over, if they helped us anyway, that they were the ones who'd find their kids chopped to pieces the next morning. You know what I mean? So you can understand them being very sort of, I mean, they're just standing. They weren't doing anything anti us, but they were just The whole village literally was in a ring around us. So, if you like, about motivations and things, those were all sorts of things that were going on in the background. It wasn't just a car crash and I nearly got drowned. You know, there was a lot more environment to it than that. Anyway, okay, fine.